Here we are. We're back. It's outside. I just got back from my walk, reflecting on how hot it is out there. Sitting here trying to cool down before I go back outside and get into the heat again. This morning, I woke up and I checked my news feed on my phone, and it's all about war, right? So they're discussing how Russia is going to take the Baltic states and how nothing can really stop that. And those people are gearing up to defend themselves. It won't work. There's really nothing that can stop the Russians from taking all of Europe. I have one topic here, which is global heating. The reason why things are happening the way they are is because of global heating. People are becoming desperate. Nothing is going to stop Russia from taking Europe. Why would they take Europe? Because they're going to run out of food, and they're going to run out of water, and they're going to run out of imports and everything else. So, as often happens when your country runs out of something important and you have weapons, you go and you steal whatever it is you need from that other country across the way, the next valley over, wherever you have to go. Global heating is going to create refugee crises that are going to be impossible to manage. We're already seeing the early days of that here in the U.S. I mean, the United States is a large country. The south of the country, the southeast, and really the entire eastern third of the country is in deep trouble, really big trouble. I don't know. I just don't know how this is going to work. It's not going to work. So as internal refugee crises mount and as food crises continue and food shortages become obvious, food inflation, the cost of food, reducing availability, people are going to lose their mind. And when they lose their mind, and this is, legit that they might, it's anxiety, it's grief, it's embarrassment, it's whatever. Then they're going to want to, make someone else suffer. They're going to want what that other person has. They're going to want to keep their resources, not send them to other countries, and even individual states will want to keep their food and their oil and their whatever electricity and not send it to neighboring states, right? It just becomes what they call a dog eat dog world, right? That's what people do. And because of that, Russia is going to take Europe so they can have their shit. And because of that, Z in China is going to take as much of Asia as he can, and to have everything they have. And if you have crop failures in China, as they're having now because of all the flooding and the heat and the lack of water in some places, you just go take your food from somebody else. That's what it's all about. That's what you do. And that's why you have a Navy, and that's why you have an Army, and that's why you have an Air Force. And you make sure that you have more than the guy across the border has compared to you. And when you want something, you just go over there and you take it. That's how it works. It's always worked that way. That's human nature. That's the part of global heating that is really predictable, is that when things get tight and people start to do without, then they're going to go take something that they need or want or crave or are addicted to from somebody else who has it. And it doesn't matter if that other country, that other group of people has more than they need and could share. You take it all. And if they suffer and die, too bad. Hey, maybe they'll come to your country to get some of their food that you took from them, and you can use them for slave labor. And that's how this works. We have 8,000 million people on this planet. 8,000 million. A million is a large number, right? 8,000 is a large number. Now put those two together. 8,000 million people. That's 8 billion people. We can't feed, clothe, or house 8,000 million people without constant inputs of fossil fuels. It's debatable. I've thought about this a lot. It's debatable whether we could even manage 0.1% of that many people, which is like 8 million people in the world as it's becoming, with the growing zones vanishing under floodwaters or vanishing under heat or vanishing under warfare, with the growing zones disappearing and refugees, traveling the planet looking for food, clothing, and shelter, as you would expect them to, right? They have a natural right to try and live. Everyone wants to survive. And you have a natural right. You don't have a natural right to survive, but you have a natural right to try to survive, okay? Everybody has that right to try and survive. to try and save their family, to try and save their culture, to try and save, their community. Everyone in every community has a natural right to try. Most will fail. Nearly all will fail. In fact, I could even say all will fail. If you're not in the right place right now to survive, then you won't, because there's nowhere for you to go. And when the time comes, there will be no way for you to get there. You need to be there now, or even 5 years ago. So global heating is going to drive all this. It's going to drive the refugee crises. It's going to drive the food shortages. It's going to drive the infrastructure failures, as it's doing now, right now. It started early days, as I like to say, early days right now. And as that happens, we're going to get more of these populist dictators, right? Putin in Russia, Xi in China, Trump in North America. I mean, really, he gets to be king now of all of North America, including Canada and Mexico. Yeah, that's going to be a thing. Sorry to break it to you. He gets to be king of North America, the God King. And then, we're going to have the same thing happen all over the world. When people start to run out of food, clothing, and shelter, and water, and medicine, the other things that are reliant on fossil fuels, the other things that are reliant on infrastructure functioning and supply chains functioning, when all that starts to collapse under the heat alone can do it. The heat can do it all by itself, just heat. And then when the infrastructure collapses, that will add on to the avalanche, right? The heat starts it, and then the collapses continue it. Right now in Houston, Texas, a week practically after Hurricane Beryl came through, there's people there still don't have electricity. These are just early days of the collapse of everything that keeps us alive. So you can't have 8,000 million people without all that. And so they're going to die. I don't know how else to say it. They're just going to die. I'm not looking forward to it. I might be one of those people. Could easily be, right? My age, where I'm located, yeah, could be. I maybe end up being one of those 8,000 million people that dies. But of all those 8,000 million people, I'm the one that knows it, that knows what's going to happen. I know. They don't. I do. Does it give me any succor to know that? Do I have any feeling of superiority? No. It's a nightmare. And so I was laying in bed this morning thinking about the end of the world. And I don't think about the end of the world in terms of Hollywood or zombie apocalypses or even nuclear weapons, although all those things will probably have some role to play as usual, right? The usual suspects. I think of the end of the world in really strictly mathematical terms, physics, biology, infrastructure, energy, that kind of stuff. So when I'm laying in the bed and I'm thinking about the end of the world, and I'm thinking about how global heating is now causing that to happen, here we go. Early days, but here we go. Yes, I had water and now I have coffee. Got work to do. Keeps me going. I think about how global heating is going to trigger all these things to happen. And when things trigger, that they trigger in the normal way, the way that things always happen, the way they happened for the Romans, and the way it happened for the Celts, and the way it happened for the Mesopotamians, and it's the same story. There's a crisis over here, all these refugees, everything that you thought was sacred and eternal, like the Silk Road and the ships coming into port and the camel trains and all these things that you thought would be forever, are suddenly disrupted. And now, what are you going to do, right? Oh, and the wandering hordes come in and they take your food and they take your women and they kill your leadership and they set fire to your buildings and then they leave, right? And they leave you with nothing. And what was that about? Well, that's a thing, right? Now I have nothing. And now you join the refugee horde. And of course, you're hoping to get some of that food they just took from you, but it doesn't matter. You have to go with them because they've got the food and they've got the weapons and they're now the story. They're the narrative. That's your narrative, walking across the landscape, hoping to find food and clothing and shelter. And now that's your story too, because they just came and took all your food, clothing, and shelter. So now you don't have any, right? You see how it works? You had something, you thought it was eternal and forever, and now you have nothing because things changed. So here we are, global heating. We're seeing a rise in populist leaders. They're not leaders. They're just clowns. Vladimir Putin is a clown. He's a clown, okay? Donald Trump is a clown. These are performers. And Chairman Z, they're just men with power who can threaten you like mafia bosses, right? They just threaten you. It's just performance. They tell you in great detail all the terrible things they're going to do to you. And Vladimir Putin, all he has to do now that it's obvious that no one can really stop him, not in the bullets way, because he's got nuclear weapons, right? He's got how many? 6,000 nuclear weapons he could stage if he wants to. And so he just has to say, you have to do what I want. I got nuclear weapons. And the US isn't going to deploy their nuclear weapons to save Europe. Why would North America endanger itself for Eurasia? Not happening. So Europe doesn't have any nuclear weapons. The UK and the France do, but hey, the French, they don't have anything. And are they going to run the risk of having Paris vaporized to keep Vladimir Putin from taking Poland? No. So he's going to take Poland. And if the Poles don't like it, he'll nuke Vilnius, or he'll nuke some other city, or he'll nuke this capital city in a nearby nation that nobody cares about, or Romania. And then he'll tell the Poles, okay, that's Romania, and I got several pointed at you. Are you going to surrender or not? And of course, they're going to surrender. So Vladimir Putin goes all the way to the sea, including France. And then he takes their nuclear weapons and uses them to do whatever he wants to with them. So that's how it's going to happen. That's just how it's going to happen. That's how the Romans did it. And the Mongol horde, and that's how they do it. They just do it. They just show up at your gate, knock on the gate. Hi, we're here to conquer you. You can either surrender now or we'll kill you all. And you've got 5 minutes to answer. And on the occasion when some group of people said, no, we've got gates, we've got walls. You can't just knock on the gate and say surrender or we're going to kill you all. We think we're fine. Just fuck off. Well, then they killed them all. It was easy. Walls, gates, it holds for a little while, but then it doesn't hold anymore. And, you've got your trebuchet, you launch dead animals and rotting corpses and fire and all into the city. And pretty soon the people, they give up. They weren't ready for bloated carcasses of dead animals to fly into their city and splash all over the ground and contaminate the streets, and the place stinks to high heaven. And now all these heads are being launched over the walls, and now there's now there's heads on fire being launched over the walls and setting fire to the buildings, and the people are running around. I didn't sign up for this. Well, you said they wouldn't do anything, and I think we should just surrender. We should just surrender. So they surrender. So they open the gates, and the Mongols say, "This really happened. Okay, this happened all the time." And the Mongols say, oh, actually, yeah, remember the deal? You either surrender the first 5 minutes we're here, or we kill all of you. So thanks for opening the gates. Now we're going to kill you all. And the next village over, here's that story from some survivor who ran with broken legs all the way to the next village and said, this is what happened. And they told us to open the gates, and we didn't. And when we did, they killed us all except for me, and I escaped on a broken leg. And then the next village over, when they show up, and Vladimir Putin is knocking on the gate and saying, yeah, remember what happened in Romania? I got lots of nuclear weapons. You just have to open your gates and let me in. And they will. And they will. So Putin takes all of Europe. Just like that. It's gone. 3-5 years? Well, as soon as he rolls out the nukes and vaporizes the capital city of Romania, well, then it's over. It could be over in a matter of weeks. Weeks, days, it could be over. He could tell every capital, I've got 10 nuclear weapons on every city with more than 1 million people, or more than 500,000 people. I got 10 nuclear weapons targeted at every city with more than 500,000 people. And, they're sitting on the launch pad, ready to go. I got my finger on the trigger. I push this trigger. I tell them what to do. Watch this. Pushing. Almost pushed. Almost. And I'm going to push the button if you don't surrender. So they will. And Vladimir Putin goes all the way to the Atlantic Ocean as fast as he can roll his tanks. Because you got the button. Look at the button. And when Chairman Z, soon to be Emperor Z, because that's how the Chinese roll, soon to be Emperor Z sees that, well, then he gets his weapons out. I'm going to push the button on Taiwan and the Philippines and India and this and that and someone else. And they all surrender because they saw what Vladimir Putin did over there to somebody else. And they're like, oh, that's how we're going to play this? We have to surrender or die? Okay, we surrender. You end up with Emperor Z, Tsar Putin, and the Mad King Trump ruling their respective spheres. And they might even fight with each other. Who knows? Maybe it's the last dog standing, right? Whichever one of the three gets started first or lasts the longest, he gets to be the ruler of the world. But watch what's happening while all this is going on. Currently, we extract something on the order of 100 million barrels a day. It's a nice round figure, so I repeat it, of oil. We extract 100 million barrels a day of oil, and we set it on fire. We use it for different things: transportation, energy generation, manufacturing stuff. 100 million barrels of oil a day. That's a lot of oil. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. That turns out to be the minimum. I mean, we could even do more than that if we wanted to, but we don't. But we could probably and get away with it. 100 million barrels of oil a day. If the entire planet is at war, double that. Double it. And if the Saudis don't want to pump twice the amount they're pumping now, then somebody just invades Saudi Arabia. Who would it be? It could be the Chinese or it could be the Russians. It won't be the Americans because it's too far away. So somebody invades Saudi Arabia, takes their oil. Thank you very much. Great job. No nukes for you. Venezuela. What are they doing? They're sitting on all this oil. They don't know what they're doing. They're completely bankrupt. Take Venezuela. Okay, the U.S. could do that. We take their oil. We pump all their oil out of the ground. Pump it all out of the ground in a year and a half, right? Just massive effort. Pump it all out of the ground. And, we double the amount of oil that's being extracted. And of course, we burn the coal, we burn the natural gas, we generate electricity, we do all the manufacturing, we transport the troops, we build the ships, we build the tanks, we build the airplanes, we deploy all this shit. Everything is in the air all the time. All these ships at sea, zooming around and launching missiles at each other and all this kind of stuff. And just, 200 million barrels of oil a day. So what does that do to climate change, global heating? Well, it just goes apeshit, right? It just goes completely bonkers. You thought you had problems before. You thought you had problems now. You haven't seen anything until the world is at war. World is at war. Global heating takes off. And do you think there's any discussion now? I mean, now that the world is at war and Emperor Z and Tsar Putin and Mad King Trump, you think there's going to be any talk about, wow, we have to do something about global heating? Are you kidding me? You're funny. You're really funny. If you think that talk is going to be going on during World War III. Funny, haha. So global heating gets worse. Oh, and it can get worse really fast. And let's say that these mad emperors and czars and kings, they've now divided up the world. They're happy with what they have. They don't need any more. They've enslaved their own populations. They've enslaved the refugee populations. Everybody works in the fields. Everybody feeds the king, the emperor, the czar, the whatever. And it's all insanity. I mean, these mad rulers, they just kill anybody they don't like. It's just like Genghis Khan. We don't like you. You're dead. Just like Joseph Stalin. I don't like you. You're scary. You threaten me. I don't know. You got cooties. You're dead. Just kill them all. Kill them all. We can't feed, clothe, and house 8,000 million people anyway. So what's the best thing to do with 8,000 million people that you can't save? Work them to death, right? That's what you do. You put them out in the fields. Why give them tractors? Give them pointed sticks, right? Get out in the field and you want food? You want food? Sure you want food, right? Get out there in the field and grow it. And then when the harvest comes in, oh, well, we keep the food for the king. Right? And you don't get any. And so you're going to die, but that's okay because there's 8,000 million people we have to get rid of because, that's too many people. You've got one emperor, one czar, and one mad king. And how many people can they control? It's not 8,000 million. Promise you that. And all these people keep coming across the border. What's happening? Africa, you can't live there anymore. The Middle East, you can't live there anymore. Southeast Asia and South Asia, India, you can't live there anymore because it's too hot. South America is too hot. The entire Amazon rainforest is on fire. It has been for 6 years, burning constantly day and night, year after year. You can't live there anymore? Really? Well, that's not our problem. Don't come to our border and try to get our things. We just deployed all of our militaries to take all that shit from you. We're not going to share that with you. Don't come to our borders. And, the military is going to line up at the border and just mow people down, or use them for slave labor until they die. Because that's how you do it. That's how you do it. They want to come into your country. They want to work. They want food, clothing, and shelter. Work them until they die. And you got work out of them. And you didn't have to build tractors or build combine harvesters or anything. You just let them work the ground by hand, and put the seeds in by hand, and irrigate by hand, and harvest by hand. And by then they're exhausted and they're starving and they're emaciated, and they just die because you don't feed them. I know that sounds terrible. But what are you going to do with 8,000 million people who want to come into your country for food, clothing, and shelter? Because the rest of the world has become uninhabitable. And why did the rest of the world become uninhabitable? Because selfish white people. There you go. Unsubscribe, downvote, leave, never come back. I don't care what you're going to do. The North won. Everybody else gets to die now. Everyone else is going to die. The North won. Why did they win? I don't know. Something about more violent than anybody else. The Mediterranean countries were enjoying their olives and their wine and their slaves and their concubines, and they just didn't have the gumption. So the North won. They just came in and brutalized everybody. And it doesn't matter whether you're the Northern Mongol horde or the Northern Vikings or, the Northern Germans or the Norman Saxons and the Northern Saxons, whatever you are from the North. You're just more violent than those people from the South. So you win. And pretty soon, it's just all one type of people. Everyone else either died in place because of global heating, or they died at the border trying to get across. And if they got across, they met the quota, then they died in the fields because nobody wants them. They're just labor. Put them to work. Work them until they die. That's what you do with 8,000 million people when you can't support 8,000 million people. And meanwhile, they're burning all the fossil fuels they can find to fight their wars. And meanwhile, the planet's getting hotter, and there's all these fires, and there's all this disaster, and there's always all this death and destruction and crop failures and famines and plagues, all these disasters. This sounds like the Bible, right? Sounds like the book of Revelations, undo the first seal and undo the second seal, and raining blood and raining frogs and, fire and brimstone. And yeah, it kind of sounds like the Bible, which was written by white people. My people. Okay, I know my people. And as it gets hotter and hotter, because you can't stop it now. We can't even stop it today. We can't do anything with this today. You think you're going to do something what we have today? You're not doing jack. This is it. You're stuck with this. The only thing you can possibly do is not make this worse. And maybe, and that's a big if. I would give a 10% chance that we could not make this worse. A very, very small chance. Definitely not coin toss that odds. 10% chance that we could stop this from getting worse. Because at some point, it just takes off. And there's actually nothing we can do to influence it at all. Nature just takes over. Nature bats last, right? And so when the forests are on fire and the permafrost is melting and the glaciers are melting and it's all the ice is melting and it's all draining into the sea and the sea level is rising and the seas are dying and we can't get any food from the sea and you can't even be near the sea because of the stench of all the dead things. They had 77 pilot whales beach themselves in Scotland. 77 pilot whales beach themselves in Scotland. What's that shit about? That's random. Oh, pilot whales do that all the time. Really? I don't think so. And if they're doing it all the time, it's because something that we did. Yeah, so pretty soon the beaches are covered with dead animals and scum of algae, and it stinks. And you can't even get the boats out of the harbor because the algae is feet thick from all the eutrophication, from the heat and the nutrients. Everything is dead and dying. It stinks of hydrogen sulfide, which is toxic, by the way. And so if you live near the coast, you're going to have to move inland just to be able to breathe the air without dying from the breath. Hydrogen sulfide. Scotland. Wow. Okay, here we go, right? Here we go. This is it. We're on glide path. This is it. This is the end of the world. Here we go. So once you have all, well, it's all mad emperors and mad kings and mad czars, and they're killing people willy-nilly and working them to death in the fields and the gulags, and their political prisoners are rotting in dungeons someplace, and all this kind of shit's going down, then yeah, you don't have 8,000 million people anymore. You maybe have 7,000 million, maybe you have 5,000 million, maybe you have 3,000 million. There's fewer people all the time. And it's getting so hot that you can't even survive in lower latitudes. So you have to start moving north. And that's an interesting trick, right? What's up there? Siberia? You know, not rich in agricultural land, people. It's bogs. No soil. There's no soil up there. The Canadian boreal forest, it's a forest. You're going to have to clear the trees to be able to plant anything. And how are the Canadians going to feel about that? Well, of course, Mad King Trump will have, you know, enslaved them and probably killed them by then if they put up any kind of a fuss. So if he wants to go into the boreal forest of Canada and clear the trees, set them on fire, pull up the stumps and start planting crops, you know, so he can feed his fat self, well, then that's what he'll do. Can't stop him. He's got nuclear weapons. You don't like it? Here, I got a bomb for you. Say goodbye to Toronto. Say goodbye to Vancouver. Got bombs for you. Now, give me your land. Oh, and by the way, I've got work for you to do. Prepare to join the masses out in the fields, because Make America Great Again had nothing to do with Canada. There's no C in Make America Great Again. So all the mad kings and emperors, they start moving north, because that's where you can survive, because that's where you can have arable land now. And where there isn't arable land, you put the slaves to work creating arable land. And if nothing else, if they just drop dead on the ground, you know, then they become fertilizer, right? I know this is brutal, right? This is terrible. How can a person even think these things? This is history, folks. This is how people do it. This is how they do it. You work them until they die and they become fertilizer. That's how we do it. The Aztecs would sacrifice 1,000 people a day to their god. 1,000 people a day. Rip their beating hearts out of their chests. 1,000 people a day. Hundreds of people a day. Why would they do that? Don't even know. What god are we even talking about? No one knows. No one remembers. Nobody cares. Doesn't matter. They did it. That's what people do. People are like that. People are like that. You don't believe me? Go read yourself some history. Stalin was like that. Mao Zedong was like that. The Emperor of China, the first Emperor of China, was like that. That's how they do it. They are gods, and people mean nothing to them except what you can extract from them in labor and value. That's how they do it. That's how they do it. That's how it's done. And when you have mad czars and mad emperors and mad kings everywhere, that's how you do it. That's what you do. That's how you maintain your power. That's how you get fed. That's how you terrorize people. You work them to death. And the ones that aren't being worked to death feel great about that. And they'll do whatever you want. And they'll prostrate themselves at your feet. Walk over broken glass, whatever it takes to not be dead in the fields. This is what madness brings you. We're voting for madness right here in America. Which flavor of madness do you want? Do you want Joe Biden and his dementia, or do you want Donald Trump and his insanity? Great choice, right? Well, it's always going to come down to that. And the people that you get to select for your leadership are going to be increasingly mad, increasingly insane, not less, more. Every year it gets worse, in part because someone got away with it earlier. And if that level of insanity got you to be president, well, then this level of insanity might get you king. And which would you rather be? Slightly insane and president, or thoroughly insane and king, or emperor, or czar, or whatever, for life? Well, I think I'm going to go with the total insanity then. Because what I really want is power. And I want power forever for my personal self. I want people to bow and scrape to me. I want them to fawn over me and kiss my royal toe and tell me that I'm the God Emperor, and tell me that I'm eternal and immortal, and I descended, and have a narrative how I descended on a staircase from the stars. And I was born for greatness, and my whole family is born for greatness. And there's a special mountain that we visited, and we spoke to a goddess, and the goddess anointed our family. And now our family is born to greatness, and we are emperor for life, and we are president for life. And we're the king, and we're the God Emperor, and we're just it can never end, it can never stop, and everybody must prostrate themselves before the God Emperor, and you must work yourselves in the field until you die, because God says so, and I'm God, and I just said so, and that's how this works. It doesn't work another way. Caesar is always insane. The Tsar was always insane. These people are always mad. And that's what we're getting. We're getting all these different flavors of madness. Madness. We're getting madness. It's being driven by global heating. People are losing their minds. People don't know what to think. And when they don't know what to think because they're dumb and they're chimps, then they're just going to go to someone who claims that they know what to think. Vladimir Putin, all he has to say is, yes, I am your anointed leader and I know just what to do. People are going to say, phew, that's a relief because I don't know what to do. And he says he knows what to do and he's got the nuke. So I guess I'll let him do that. And he invades Ukraine and he invades Romania and he invades Poland, and all this cool stuff comes back. Free cars and free dishwashers and free water heaters. And people are like, wow, he was right. He really knew what to do. And all this goods, all this food and free electricity, it all comes back to Russia. And same thing with the mad Emperor Z and the mad King Trump. I mean, they bring the goods. They bring the goods. It's all theft, of course, and murder and genocide. And it's all theft, but they bring the goods. And for a little while, it works. For a little while, it works. And then there's no more goods because you've raped and pillaged and set everything on fire and terrorized the people and genocided the rest of them and worked the slaves until they were dead. And hey, you know what happens when you work the slaves until they die? Then you don't have anybody working in the fields. And so this whole thing has a shelf life, right? This whole insanity that now you are all embarking on, voting for Z and voting for Putin and voting for Trump and voting for Marine Le Pen and voting for somebody else, voting for Boris Johnson and voting for Farage and voting for all these insane clowns. By voting for these people who tell you, I got all the answers, baby, and I'm going to invade this guy, and I'm going to take these people, and I'm going to kill these people at the border, and I got all the answers, and you just vote for them thinking, wow, that's a relief because I don't have any answers. And so this guy says he's got all the answers. Fine, let's vote him into office to see what he's going to do for us. And so for a while, he does it until he can't because there's nothing else. And at the same time that, they're destroying the infrastructure and destroying other nations and enslaving all these people and setting everything on fire. At the same time, they're doing all that because human nature, because it works, because it brings the goods, and people keep thinking, hey, if I get a new free car every year because they stole it and I get it for free, why would I not, bow to the mad king? He's bringing the goods. The goods, give me the goods. That's all I want. I don't want freedom. I don't want justice. I don't want equity. I want the goods. Bring me the good, the money. Where's my money? Biatch, my money. And that works until there isn't anymore. But no one thinks that far ahead because no one thinks, period. No one thinks. No one cares. I got a new car. I got rings. I got, money to go gamble at Vegas. It's all stolen. It's all ill-gotten gains. It's all theft. It's all genocide. It's all raping and pillaging and setting things on fire. But hey, I got something. So that works. And then it's gone. And now you don't have 8,000 million people to exploit, to enrich yourself. You maybe don't even have 1,000 million. Maybe you don't have 20 million. Maybe you don't have 10 million people. Maybe it's just a few people left. And, there's nobody working the fields and the crops aren't coming in. And where are the slaves? And, where are my subjects? And, the mad Emperor Z, the 12th, can't solve the problems anymore. And the mad Tsar Putin, the 17th, can't solve the problems anymore. And, the mad God King Trump, the 11th, can't solve the problems anymore. And global heating has been steadily eating the planet, making more places uninhabitable, pushing people further north. Can't push them south because there's really no land in the south. Yeah, try living in Patagonia. Good luck. Pushing people north into lands that are currently not fit for agriculture, not fit for agriculture. You'd have to bury the permafrost. You'd have to, which isn't frozen anymore, which is a big bog. You have to drain the bogs, create the soil. Good luck with all that. That's terraforming. Never been done. Don't know how you do it. Don't know where to start. Don't know what the technology would be. Don't know how long it would take. Good luck with Siberia. And then you're going to have to cut down the boreal forests everywhere that they are, set them on fire, and till the soil. Hell, it would probably be easier to do it with nuclear weapons. Just set off a bunch of nukes, flatten the trees, set them all on fire all at once, and then go back and get the slaves to work the radioactive soil. Problem solved. That's probably how they would do it. That's probably how the Mad King would do it. I've got all these nuclear weapons. I've run out of people to kill and threaten and violate with nuclear weapons. I'll just blow up the forests. They're in the way. Just blow them up. Now they're radioactive. Well, that's fine. I don't care about it. I got slave labor, for fuck's sake. Why would I care about that? They're going to get cancer and die. Yeah, but they'll work for a few years, and we'll get more. There's always more. I got people at my borders all the time trying to get in here. You want in? Well, guess what? I have a quota to make today. So yeah, I could take 100 of you and put you on the bus and send you to the north, and you're out the north and you're working in the fields. And I'm going to tell you that the fields are radioactive. Of course, I guess then the food is radioactive, but it's not radioactive if the Mad King says it's not radioactive. You eat the food. And then all the subjects are getting cancer and dying of organ failures, leukemia and whatnot. It doesn't matter. You wanted food. Now I got food for you. Meanwhile, of course, the king is not eating the radioactive food from the radioactive forest that had to be nuked to get rid of the trees. No, he's got his own private lands over here, and these are fine, and he eats well, and all the rest of the people are just going to have to suffer through radiation poisoning. But don't worry about it. You're alive. You got food. What else do you want? And be sure to worship me every day. Keep a picture of me on the wall. With little candles burning and incense and flowers and whatever else. Worship me. I'm the God King. I'm the God Emperor. Worship me. Worship me. Worship me. Worship me. Worship me. Worship me and die. Worship me, suffer and die. Worship me. I'm the king. I'm the czar. I'm the emperor. I'm the God. Worship me. Worship me. That's what they want. That's what they'll get. They are absolutely going to get that. Because they're going to promise the goods. And global heating will go completely unheated. And it's going to devour the planet and push everybody north who can go north. And as I said in my extinction video, by the time we are pushed completely to the north, the Arctic Circle is small. And when you get to the North Pole, the size is technically zero. There's no land at the exact North Pole. And in this case, the North Pole is in a sea, an ocean, the Arctic Ocean. There's no land there at all. So there's a point where you run out of land. And everything else headed to the top of the world is water. And so now all these people get pushed north, always trying to find arable land, always trying to find some place to grow their crops, keep their animals. And pretty soon, there's just no land left. Now they're above the Arctic Circle. It's probably so hot you can't even stand it. And the nights are still, there's one time a year when the nights last, 90 days. And there's another part of the year where the day lasts 90 days because it's in the far north. You just got to know these things, right? And you can't grow food up there. You have to live basically on the animals. That's what the native peoples up there would do. They would eat the animals. And if they wanted food, they would eat the food that was in the animals. If they wanted plants, they would eat the plants partially digested in the animal's stomach. That's where they would get their plant matter, because you can't eat the plants up there until they've been digested by a caribou or something. And so they eat the meat and they eat the fat and they eat, fish if they can find any. I mean, the oceans are going to be destroyed by global heating. Maybe not the Arctic Ocean. Maybe the Arctic Ocean is the last ocean that can still harbor life. So you can eat the shellfish, the seals, the walruses, whatever's up there, whatever's still up there. And maybe it's whole new species that are up there by then. What is it? We're talking 30 years from now. There could be whole new types of animals living up there because it's gotten warmer. So all the icebound animals, like I just mentioned, they get wiped away and they're replaced with things that are found in temperate areas, regular deer, regular fish, whatever. So they're up there eating the animals because there's not enough light 3 months out of the year to grow crops. And there's no land anyway. And it's all ocean and it's hot. And what are you going to do? And how many people is that by then? 8 million? 800,000? 8,000? I don't know. So that was the thought I was having this morning. Where does this go? How do we get out of this? What's it going to look like when you run away? And when you run away, which way do you run? And I just keep coming down to the same answer. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to go. There's no escaping this. No one's going to get out of this. You're going to get stuck in it. You're going to get stuck. It's going to steamroll you to one degree or another. We're all going to get steamrolled by this. And the Mad King isn't going to care. Well, he'll care about himself. But so long as he's being fed and he's got his fried chicken, he's fine, okay? Fried chicken or fried human. What do you really know the difference? And the Mad King and the Mad Emperor and the Mad Tsar, they're going to divide up the world and they're going to be fine because that's what they care about. And the people who get closest to them, they'll be fine because that's what they care about. And everyone else is a fear slave, working in the fields, hoping to get some food, eating some of the wheat as fast as they can harvest it, put it in their mouth, crunch it up while they're harvesting, okay, and hope they don't get caught. Eating the wheat that they're harvesting for the emperor, pick a couple of pieces off the ground, stick it in my mouth while no one's looking, and then go harvesting more wheat. Trying to feed yourself. Picking up wheat and rice and whatever off the ground and stick it in your mouth while no one's looking, okay? And harvest, harvest, harvest. Starve, starve, starve. That's where this all goes. Until there's finally 8,000 of us stuck at the North Pole. Not at the North Pole because that's underwater. Stuck north of the Arctic Circle. 8,000 of us. And then extinction? Possibly. Possibly we go extinct at that point. The rest of the planet is too hot to inhabit. We probably have generational nightmares about the South. People won't even know what happened. At some point, there will be so little understanding of what's happening that it just becomes myth. People will talk about the South as hell. Yeah, hell is in the South. Hell's not in the ground. They won't even remember that myth. And they'll have a much more poignant, very approachable reality about where hell is. Hell is to the south. You don't go hell. You don't go south. You get as far north as you can, and you deal with the 90 days of night, and you deal with the 90 days of day, and you tough it out in the north, and you don't go south because south is where hell is. That's where people go to die, suffer and die. That's where the Mad King was. And the Mad King becomes like an avenging god, the Mad King in the South, the undying, eternal, immortal Mad King in the South, reigning in hell. That's the story they'll tell each other when they're living above the Arctic Circle and the nights last 90 days. And maybe they go extinct. Or maybe they don't. Maybe in 50, 60, 100,000 years, the planet is able to cool for whatever reason. I could propose a couple of mechanisms for how the planet might start to cool itself. It doesn't matter. It takes a long time, though. You have to understand that. So let's say 50,000 years from now, the planet begins to cool through some mechanism. And then people start to venture south. Okay, so they venture south. 50,000 years from now, that's a long time. 50,000 years. It's virtually impossible that any vestiges of today's civilization, even the stuff made in concrete and iron, will endure. So maybe they'll find some stumps of concrete buildings that collapsed in on themselves, and maybe they'll call them pyramids, and maybe they'll say that the gods made them, and maybe they'll say aliens from space made them, like they do today. These jumbles of concrete and stone and iron that was made by aliens. Must have been, because people can't make these kinds of things. Must have been aliens, right? And so they'll venture south and they'll find the remnants of today's civilization. And what will they think of that? But after 50,000 years, I bet they don't find squat. Nothing. The iron will have rusted. Even the parts of the planet that got so hot that people couldn't live there anymore, or at least you couldn't raise crops, and therefore you starve if you try to live there. The parts of the planet that people had to abandon are still going to have storms and rain, and it's going to be hot. It's going to rain. The heat is going to accelerate decomposition of the concrete and the steel, and so when you finally show up down there, it's just going to be just mounds of rust where the whole buildings used to be, and mounds of rubble covered with vines and creepers, like we find in the Amazon rainforest now, the vestiges of ancient civilizations. We have to clear the trees just to see the wreckage of what they left behind. And they'll find these things. They won't understand them. They won't recognize them. They'll have no idea what happened. All they know is that, according to the myths, hell was in the south and was ruled by a mad king, an insane king. That's all they'll know. And so they'll repopulate the earth, and maybe there'll be 1 million people, and then there's 2 million people. But the one thing they're not going to do is find fossil fuels. They're not going to find fossil fuels. And one of the reasons that I know that this is the first time we've done this little shit show is because of the fossil fuels. We discovered fossil fuels, coal and oil primarily, on the surface. There were pools of oil, and they would burn. And people started to put two and two together. Okay, this could be interesting. And we found coal on the surface. You just picked it up. You took it home. You set it on fire. Well, that's interesting. And so we started looking for this stuff and digging the stuff up. And we built an entire industrialized civilization on fossil fuels. It took us about 300 years, starting with coal. But we did that. Okay, but we got the easy stuff. You understand? We got the easy stuff. And now it's just coal mines. Everything's underground. So by the time 50,000 years from now, when people are able to return to the south because it's cooled off enough and there's been enough reintroduction of nature and there's enough animals to support, human hunting and gathering, and there's enough trees to support, making clothing and making shelter. When we start to return, we're not going to find those resources anymore on the surface. We're not going to find pools of oil. It's all deep in the ground now, and the wells have collapsed, and the coal mines have collapsed, and the open pit coal mines have filled in with rubble and trees and water, and you'll go through an oil field and you not even know that there was oil taken from there. You'll be able to see these mounds of rust, and that's what's left of an oil well. Took it 50,000 years, but it rusted, and now it's just this flat orange rust spot on the ground. That's all that's left. So they won't have fossil fuels. So they'll never industrialize again. They won't. They won't be able to do this again. They won't even know that happened, because it's been 50,000 years, and hell was in the south, and it was ruled by a mad king, and they're not going to remember anything about that. They're not going to have any memories. Oh, well, we write things down. Paper, how long is that going to last? Oh, well, it could be in a computer. Computers, are you even kidding me? Yeah, you're funny. Okay. The internet. Please, let's get serious about this, shall we? So when they go down there, they'll have no cultural memory of anything that came before. And they won't even know to look for the coal and the oil. They won't even know what to do with them when they find them. They'll find a black rock. And I'll say, a black rock. Can't do much with this. Throw it off to one side. They won't even know you're supposed to set the black rock on fire. They might find a pool of oil, and they'll say, oh, that's nasty shit. Let's get away from here. Look at it. It's even killing all the trees. And look at these animals that get stuck in it and die. We're going to stay away from that stuff. That's demonic. They're not going to know you're supposed to set it on fire. This was hard-won knowledge. It took us tens of thousands of years to figure all this shit out the first time we figured it out. And you think that coal wasn't found on the surface in the UK the entire time that Stone Age people lived there? You think that the coal wasn't found on the surface in Germany when the Visigoths were, fighting the Romans? You think it wasn't there? Of course it was there. The oil was everywhere. There was pools of oil in Southern California today. That was there. The Native Americans didn't know what to do with it, and they didn't do anything with it we know of. It took tens of thousands of years to figure out chemistry and energy and how to use this stuff. We finally learned how to use it, and we went nuts with it. But these people, it's going to take them 10,000 years to figure out what to do with this stuff, if they can even find it. And will they have their own industrial revolution? Of course not. I mean, they'll find the orange rust, plaques on the earth, and maybe, oh God, maybe they'll figure out how to smelt iron from the rust, because that's all iron ore is rust. Maybe they'll figure out how to take these valuable orange places on the ground where something from the gods, from the aliens, who knows where it is. We figured out on accident after 10,000 years of walking over these things. Someone figured out on accident that if you melt it in a kiln with charcoal, you have a bellows and all this other stuff. Why would they even do this? Let's say they did it, and they'll figure it out. And they'll say, oh, iron, that's really useful. I can pound it. I can make knives and spoons, and I can make fish hooks, and I can do all kinds of things with this iron. And maybe they'll figure out how to take these orange places where buildings used to be, and only the rebar is left, and it rusted down into nothing, and it's just this big orange spot on the ground where there used to be a building. And they'll just figure out how to smelt that rust into iron. Maybe they'll figure that out. And they'll use trees, and they'll make charcoal out of the trees, and they'll smelt the iron, and then they'll make the things out of iron, and they'll have an iron age. You know how long ago we had an iron age here on this planet? Humans had an iron age. It's like 2,500 years ago. So they'll rise to the level of 2,500 years ago, an iron age. That's how far they'll get, and they'll get no further because they won't have fossil fuels because we took them all, the easy ones, and everything else is essentially out of reach. That's how the world ends. That's how the human world ends. I was laying in bed this morning thinking about it, thinking, wow, the human world. You know, there's so many dots you can connect. And where do those dots go when you connect them? You draw the line through all the dots. That's where it ends up. Hunters and gatherers living north of the 45th parallel. And, you know, that's it. Maybe they have an iron age if they discover that the rust patches have some value as for their metal content. Maybe they figure that out. Maybe they reinvent charcoal. Maybe they reinvent smelting. Maybe they reinvent bellows. Maybe they reinvent metallurgy. Maybe they reinvent all these things that took originally 10, 20,000 years to invent in the first place. And maybe somehow the people that come after us reinvent those things on accident. Well, they're going to do it without fossil fuels because we got all the fossil fuels. We set them on fire and put the results in the atmosphere. Created the greenhouse effect, heated the planet, destroyed civilization, destroyed all of our memories, destroyed all of our technology, elected mad kings and emperors, destroyed the people, 8,000 million, 2,000 million, 1,000 million, 500,000. Pretty soon there was almost nobody. The planet was 10, 15, 20 degrees C above baseline. You can only live above the Arctic Circle eating seal meat. Yeah, that's what we did. That's what we're doing to ourselves. We're doing that right now today. Right now today, we're doing that to ourselves. Damn. We're doing that to ourselves. And we're too stupid to stop. It's not stupid. If it was stupid, then people could get a clue. They could wake up one day like I just did this morning and say, oh, damn, this isn't looking good. I mean, I'm no dummy and I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot of science, but man, I'm connecting the dots this morning and I'm seeing where this is headed and this is bad. And I'm going to talk to my neighbor. I'm going to talk to my representative. I'm going to say, man, we got to stop this shit. And pretty soon there's a bunch of people connecting the dots and they all wake up one morning. They all connect the dots and they talk to each other because they're not stupid. They're not really stupid. So when they are able to string the dots together and listen to a couple of YouTube channels and they do all these things, then they figure it out and they say, oh man, I'm in danger. I am in physical peril right here myself. Right here at my address with my family, right around me and my little children, my grandchildren. I'm in physical peril. I'm going to do something because if you're not stupid, you can figure that out. People save themselves all the time from natural disasters because they're not stupid. Why are we not saving ourselves from this natural disaster? Why will we not save ourselves? Why can we not save ourselves? Why will we instead elect mad kings and emperors to tell us everything's going to be okay? Why will we instead embrace warfare and theft and genocide in order to get more stuff from more people because stuff is hard to get? When will we have wars for oil because oil is how you wage war and the snake eats its own tail? Well, because we're greedy. No, because we're stupid. Because we're selfish and greedy. That's why we're going to do it. That's why we're going to eat our own tail because we're selfish and greedy. And we're not going to stop. No one ever stops. The Romans never stopped. They were destroyed. Their greed overcame them. They stretched themselves too far. No one ever said that. Well, I can't say no one because there might have been a Roman somewhere, some senator or some peasant or some crop worker who was sitting around thinking one day, hey, if we keep doing this, we're going to be destroyed. Our civilization is going to collapse. Someone might have been saying that. But we don't know anything about them because no one wanted to hear it. Here I am telling you, your civilization is going to collapse. And frankly, you want it that way because what you want is more. You want more all the time. Everybody wants more all the time. Give me more, more. Where's my more? The money. Reduce inflation. I want things cheaper. I want gas at 17 cents a gallon like it was for my grandpa. I want free this, free that. I want slave labor. I want everything free. I want to be the God Emperor. I'm going to elect anybody who's going to give me what I want. And I want power, and I want prestige, and I want privileges, and I want to be on top, and I don't want to be the monkey on the bottom. I want to be the monkey on the top. Give me what I want. Anybody will give me what I want. I want them. I want them at the top. I want the God Emperor. I want the God King. I want the God Tsar. I'm going to elect these people, and they're going to give me whatever I want. More, faster, quicker. I want more stuff. I don't want just what I have today. I want more stuff. I want their stuff. I want that guy's stuff right there. He's got stuff I want. Give it to me. And I'll support you as the emperor and the God King and the madness. I'll support the madness and the invasions and the genocide and the nuclear war. Do I get stuff? Give me their stuff. You give me their stuff and you can do whatever you want. I just want stuff. Because we're greedy and selfish. And that's why we can't solve global heating, because we're greedy and selfish. It's human nature. I'm not even saying it's evil. It's not evil. It's human nature. And the fossil fuel industry is not evil. They're in business. And business is human nature too. Business is another way of expressing human nature. I want stuff. I want to get rich. I want to be powerful. I want to have influence. I want the security that comes from money and influence and power. I want to be the monkey at the top. It's very simple. We've been playing these games for millions of years. Monkey on top. And security and power and prestige. And, you can study troops of chimps and you see this shit going on. Monkey on top. Monkey got the banana. Where's my banana? He's got a banana. Give me his fucking banana. And I'll eat his face off if he doesn't give me the banana. Because I'm the monkey on top. Give me the banana, bitch. What are you doing? You're eating my banana. Give it to me. Fuck you. That's my banana. And all these bananas are my bananas. And if you go up there and you get a banana, you better give it to me because it's my bananas. Where do you think we got it? That's where we got it. Chimps fighting over bananas. And we got it from them because it worked. You see, it works. And we're going to get mad kings and mad czars and evil emperors because it works. They promise you the banana. And that's all you care about. So I get a banana out of this. You're going to invade Poland and I get a banana. Let's do it. I get all their bananas. And then they come work for me for free as slaves. Why are we standing here? Let's go. Invade Poland, invade France, invade the UK, invade Canada, nuke them, take their forests, set them on fire. Whatever we have to do. Do I get a banana out of all this? I get to be on top. I get to have slaves and bananas. Why are we standing here? Let's go. That's how this works. It's always worked that way. And it's going to continue to work that way. And pretty soon we're going to be 8,000 humans, all of us white, living on the above the Arctic Circle, eating seal meat. And probably fighting over the seal meat because, banana. But we're never going to have another industrial revolution. No, no, no. No, no, no. You get one of those. Now, maybe 300 million years from now, when the plants have been able to do what they do, maybe, I don't know, planetary physics, man, I'll allow it. But they may build back up the coal seams after 100 million years. And they may reconstitute the oil underground. That may happen. And the natural gas, and they may all build back up again over 100 million years like it did the first time, right? And maybe there'll be some animal, probably not us, probably not even a mammal. Mammals are going extinct as far as I can tell. Some animal, maybe a glorified spider or a glorified crab or something, cockroaches, will discover fossil fuels and they'll have their industrialized revolution with fossil fuels. And it's their turn to do what we did. Basically to fuck up, probably. But in the meantime, we're long gone. We're just the fossil record. And they probably Not even that. Not even the fossil record. Because if if civilization collapses and people die, you're not even going to know anything about them. We don't know anything about Neanderthals except what they leave in their cave art. And we don't even do cave art. Have you done any cave art? I haven't done any cave art. So what's going to be left behind of us? Yeah, rusty spots on the ground where buildings used to be, and all that was left was the rebar from the concrete, right? Rusty spots on the ground. That's not cave art. And no one will even know why the rusty spots are on the ground, except that aliens from space left them there or something, right? They won't have any record of us. The sentient cockroaches won't have any record of us, that we were here, that we did anything. We didn't even leave cave art, probably. It kind of makes you wonder, maybe we've been here before, right? I'm a fiction writer. And put on my fiction writer cap. Maybe, what do you think? What if we're not the first? What if this has all been done before? Would you know? Would you even know? How would you know? It doesn't matter. Our run is done. We are now going to destroy the planet for human purposes. If you're a cockroach, you're probably going to be fine. But for human uses, the planet is going to be unmade. And we will, with immediate effect, we will unmake each other as we struggle for the last banana, as we struggle for the last acre of arable land, as we do what the God Emperor, the God King, the Mad King tells us to do, unless we get killed, right? As we obey every order, kiss the royal toe every day, and worship, before the altar of the Mad King, as we do all these things, and we just vanish. So that's what I was thinking this morning. That's a cheerful thought, isn't it? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I come back here every so often, less often than I used to. When I'm furious. I'll come back here when I'm angry. And I can't stand it anymore. When I can't stand the thought. You want to catch me angry? Click the subscribe button. I'll be back.